I'm going to share a secret. If you are waiting for your ex to change their behavior so that you can be happy, you are going to be waiting forever. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through a few ways to become more resilient and take your power back from your unhealthy, toxic, or narcissistic co-parent. Hi, my name is Dr. Naila Houdani, and I help parents in high-conflict co-parenting situations take back their power so they can live a more fulfilling life and nurture a thriving family. When my childhood friend reached out to me a couple years ago, he was in the middle of an ugly separation and co-parenting situation. Since then, I've stood with him and supported him, first as a friend and now as a partner and soulmate. We suffered through a lengthy custody negotiation that led nowhere, while the biological mom attempted to severely restrict Dad's time and tried to control every aspect of the child's life, which eventually led us to court where Dad was granted substantial custodial time with the child. And although the custody situation was terrible, and co-parenting with an unhealthy person remains problematic, my partner and I have found a way to live our best lives and thrive, all while being part of his amazing child's life. We still experience co-parenting nonsense regularly, but we have found a way to deal with it better. And that's what I'm here to help you do. Today, I'm going to share with you why your unhealthy, toxic, or narcissistic ex never ceases with their drama and nonsense. And I'll give you 3 concrete tips on how you can become more resilient to anything that they throw your way. Are you ready to learn how to become more resilient to your unhealthy, toxic, or narcissistic ex? Type yes in the comments below. And if you are experiencing co-parenting challenges, please do share those in the comments below. Your comments are so helpful in letting me know more about how I can help you. So let's begin by talking about why your unhealthy, toxic, or narcissistic ex never ceases with the drama and nonsense. The most important thing to understand is that although your unhealthy ex may seem super confident in themselves, they actually lack self-esteem and self-worth. Self-esteem is how we think about ourselves and how much we value ourselves. And self-worth is how much we feel worthy of love from other people. When I describe these attributes, you may be thinking that I'm wrong, that your unhealthy, toxic, or narcissistic ex must have self-esteem and self-worth. Perhaps you're thinking they have too much of these characteristics. They act entitled. They know everything, like they are the best people in the world and everyone else is inferior to them. But all of these behaviors are a mask to protect their fragile ego. Here's a big secret. A person with high self-esteem and self-worth will never make others feel bad about themselves. They are self-confident in who they are, so they're able to lift people up with them instead of trying to bring them down. These unhealthy, toxic, or narcissistic people have a void within themselves that keeps them from being happy, so they look for ways to fill that void. And for some odd reason, humans love drama. Don't believe me? Just look at how well the TV and movie industry is doing. People spend so much time engaging with TV and movies because it fills their minds with dramatic content. But this drama is just a distraction that keeps them from looking within to see what's missing in themselves. And actually, it's not just true for the unhealthy people. Most people in general are like this. It's only when you commit to learning about yourself and awakening to your inner self that you stop using the outside world as a distraction. This is a long, sometimes painful journey to break down past patterns of belief, but it's so worth it. All right, let's go back to discussing the unhealthy, toxic, or narcissistic co-parents. Because of their lack of self-esteem and self-worth, they don't feel happy with themselves. They think that their happiness is going to come from external forces. So they keep turning to their outside context, attempting to shape it into something that may give them happiness. This often results in them attempting to control or manipulate situations they think will make them happy. And unfortunately, you are an easy target for them because you two know each other well enough that you share children. So they may use the kids to control you, such as promising more time with the kids if you give them something. They think that this thing that they get in exchange that will make them happy. And maybe it does for a short period of time, but it's not true happiness. It's hollow and superficial, and that happiness doesn't last. They may also get happiness from your reactions to them. But if they succeed in triggering you, they may be happy for a short time, but that is fleeting, and then they need to do it again and again. They may also criticize you for things that make you happy or that you are doing well, trying to bring you down to their level. What they fail to realize is that they are not going to be happy by doing this. Their self-esteem and self-worth is not going to just magically increase because they are demeaning you. So why do they continue the drama and nonsense? Because they like the reactions that they get from us. Even if it is negative, our reactions feed their twisted desire for attention. They've learned from past patterns of behavior what will bother you, what your preferences are, and then they try to use those against you. And this is going to be a little bit hard for people to hear. You have contributed to some of these behaviors. Let me explain. For all people, we form mental maps of patterns of behaviors, as well as the cause and effect of behaviors. For instance, we know that if we touch a hot stove, we'll get burned and be in pain. The same way, your ex has learned during the times that you were together that if they say or do something, it will affect you in a certain way. And so they use this knowledge to capitalize on it in order to cause you pain, which makes them feel powerful and happy. For instance, I had a client who had a superstition or a negative connotation with 9/11. My client's ex knew this about them. So the ex would oftentimes their messages to be sent out at exactly 9/11 or AM or PM. In this situation, the ex had learned a weakness of my client and had attempted to exploit it. Or in the case of co-parenting, they may have learned that you really like your child to participate in a certain activity. So they might schedule a different activity for the child to be taking place at the exact same time. In this way, your ex will use the knowledge that they have about you and your preferences to try to trigger you. Now, I know that I said that you have contributed to some of their behaviors. I want to be clear that them behaving in this way is not your fault. Their actions are their own, but they have learned your patterns. And if you keep those patterns, then you are, in effect, allowing them to continue to trigger you. You cannot stop your ex from attempting to do these things, but you can change and choose how you respond and move forward. So we need to take our power back, and you absolutely have the ability to take your power back. So let's jump into the 3 concrete things to do to become more resilient to anything that they throw your way. Before I do this, actually, I want to acknowledge that I know you're worried about your children, and you're probably thinking to yourself, Share something that's going to help me protect my kids in this situation. Guess what? I am. All of the tips I'm about to share with you, although they are focused on things you can do to become more resilient, they will help your children. Because when you thrive, when you take your power back, you can show up better for your child and help them thrive. It's like when you're on an airplane, you have to put on your oxygen mask first if you're going to be able to breathe for long enough to help your child put on their oxygen mask. The stronger and more resilient you become, the more you will be able to be there for your child. So with that, let's talk about the 3 concrete ways you can become more resilient to anything that your unhealthy, toxic, or narcissistic ex throws your way. Number 1, you need to deconstruct your old patterns of how you reacted to your ex and find new ways of responding. The next time you find yourself thinking, she knows that I hate when she does that, and she's doing it on purpose, I want you to take a step back and ask yourself, do I need to hate this behavior, or do I need to feel this way about this behavior? For instance, I had one parent I spoke with who shared that their ex is constantly running back to their family to complain about something the mom did with the kids in order to turn the family against mom and paint a negative picture of her incompetence to the family. No one wants to be disparaged to their family or have others think negatively about them. So she hates it when her ex does this. However, when I explained to her that her ex is doing this not because of her behavior, but because he needed some form of attention and validation, it started to make sense. And I pointed out how unhappy he must be within himself to need to get that from another source. And that helped her understand how pathetic he actually was. And it helped her realize that she does not need to have others' validation or approval to know that she's doing a good job as a mom. Here is where I want to highlight the difference between reacting and responding. Your unhealthy, toxic, or narcissistic ex will never stop trying to trigger you. If the old triggers fail, they will find new ones. One of your best defenses against this process is to learn to respond, not react. Responding is something we do almost unconsciously. It's quick, it's instantaneous. It's like the knee-jerk reflex when the doctor taps our knee. When we do it without thinking, we are not thinking about the long-term consequences of what we are saying or doing. And it's often driven by our deeper beliefs, biases, or habits. When we react, we give ourselves permission to experience a flood of emotions that do not serve us or help the situation. Instead, I want you to learn how to take a deep breath, or several if you need to, and learn to respond. When we respond, we do it more slowly. We consider with our conscious mind what the situation is, what needs to be said, if anything at all, what we actually feel about it, and if we should change or can change how we feel about it. We then give ourselves permission to not be triggered and find a more productive response to the situation. So let's go back to the example of the mom whose ex was disparaging her to her family. When her ex told her, yeah, I talked to your parents about X, Y, and Z behavior of yours, her first instinct, her reaction, was to get super angry and ask why on earth he would do such a thing. Instead, by having deconstructed her old patterns of reacting to this trigger, understanding actually why her unhappy ex was behaving this way, and taking a few deep breaths, she was able to respond with a much calmer, okay, and let it go. This new pattern of responding to her ex in this way throws him off and confuses him because he wants to get a reaction out of her to feed his ego. And find a moment of happiness in her misery. And now he's failed to do that. Do you see how this process helps people take their power back? If so, let me know in the comments below one of your common triggers and how you are going to respond to it in the future. Okay, that was a lot for number 1. Now let's go on to number 2. Focus on your emotional state. Our goal should be to become more emotionally intelligent, because stress doesn't come from external forces. It comes from how we respond to the external forces. This is a really hard message to absorb and requires to be in tune with our inner selves to really understand. The other person is not making you feel a certain way. Sure, their actions are triggering something within you, but only you get to decide how you feel. The goal is to identify and break down those triggers, and then you get to decide how you respond, if you respond at all. Another technique that is extremely effective when your ex is trying to trigger you is called gray rocking. This is where you show no emotional response. They will try to keep coming at you to get an emotional rise out of you, which, remember, feeds them. It's their fuel. They need that to fill the void within themselves. Your goal is to shrug it off and not engage. Now, I want to emphasize that this technique is adaptive when dealing with a toxic or a narcissistic person. It is not adaptive for healthy and loving relationships. If you are in a safe relationship where the other person genuinely cares for you, you should have the emotional and psychological safety to share your feelings without any fear or hesitation. So if you're going to adopt this technique, I want you to be sure that you are only adopting it with the people that are not providing you with the emotional or psychological safety that you very much deserve to have. Finally, start setting boundaries. Your unhealthy, toxic, or narcissistic ex will undoubtedly do things in an attempt to make you uncomfortable. Remember, these behaviors and your reactions feed them. So if they're doing something you do not like, set the boundaries. I spoke with a father recently whose ex messages the kids to see if they brushed their teeth, if they ate their breakfast, etc. This is a mom who's attempting to micromanage both the father and the children. One tool we have had to use in our own home is reminding the other parent that both parents are capable of taking care of the child. It doesn't always work to remind the other parent of this. They will likely still message because they can't help themselves. But every time you feel you are being micromanaged, this can become your tagline. Eventually, the other parent may become sick and tired of hearing the same tagline and disengage from the behavior. Another way to set boundaries is to choose not to review messages during certain times. I hear from several parents that their unhealthy or toxic ex will message them right after the child transitions to their home. And for many parents, this causes a peak of anxiety and distracts them from being present with their child. Guess what? You get to choose when you review those messages. This process will help you take your power back and reduce any stress you feel from those messages coming in. Also, I recommend not checking those messages first thing in the morning or last thing at night. Who wants to start or end their day with this kind of nonsense that the ex is no doubt sending to you? Instead, find a time in the middle of the day that you can check your messages and take care of responding to any that you need to respond to. And then go do something good for yourself to help yourself mentally reset. And if you need a mental reset, check out my free meditation on resilience and self-empowerment, navigating co-parenting challenges. You can find a link to do that in the caption below. So let's review. In this video, I shared with you why your unhealthy, toxic, or narcissistic ex never ceases with the drama and nonsense. And I shared 3 concrete tips on how you can become more resilient to anything that they throw your way. Number 1, deconstruct your old patterns of how you reacted to your ex and find a new way of responding. Number 2, focus on your emotional state and becoming more emotionally intelligent. And number 3, learn to set boundaries. If you want to learn more, check out last week's video on surviving co-parenting with a toxic ex, understanding their behavior, and 4 things you can change today. If you are ready to write the next chapter of your life where your co-parents' nonsense is no longer affecting you and you are free to live a fulfilling life and nurture a thriving family, reach out to me today to learn more. A link to do that is in the caption below. And if you found this video helpful, please do like it, share it, and subscribe to see more.